John Grace, President, Investors Advantage, and we're looking at this whole issue on immigration. So we want to dig a little bit deeper because you just have to appreciate that most of us don't bother. Really, we don't bother to look at the details. We just come to a mass conclusion. No evidence. No one's done their homework. It's whatever's popular. That's what we all run with, right? Because maybe it's the only thing we can agree. Well, we think things differently, and we like to look at the details. We like to study the numbers. We like to see where the evidence is, because then we think you might have a basis for an opinion as opposed to just pulling it out of some part of your body. Okay, so on September 2nd, 2015, this was in the Fiscal Times, and forgive me, I'm going to have to read parts of this to you, but it was the American College of Physicians, and this doctors group, which represents only 143,000 internists, issued a statement including urging physicians to take a stand against proposals for mass deportation. Some of those things that some of us are getting high on, and we're going to suggest you put that down. All right, so they go on to say large-scale deportation of undocumented residents would have severe and unacceptable adverse health consequences for many millions of vulnerable people. This is Dr. Wayne Riley, the group's president. He goes on in a statement, numerous studies show that deportation itself, as well as the fear of being deported, causes emotional distress, depression, trauma associated with imposed family separations, and distrust of anyone assumed to be associated with federal, state, and local government. I would get lively, including physicians and other healthcare professionals providing care in publicly funded hospitals and clinics. That distrust, in turn, could result in sick people not getting medical attention, and in cases of patients with infectious diseases, it could even lead to a public health emergency with tremendous costs to the overall healthcare system, the group warned. On the other hand, having illegal immigrants in the country carries healthcare costs too. This is part of that popular conversation when it comes to healthcare costs, who's in the emergency rooms, who's taking up space in the public school system, who's taking advantage of Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. But they go on to look at the numbers. So they say that Medicaid pays around $2 billion a year for emergency treatment for illegal immigrants. Kaiser Health goes on to find that in 2013, that the total represents less than 1% of total Medicaid costs. Less than 1%. So we're all up in arms, and when we do the math, we find it's less than 1%. That's not really driving the bus, folks. All right. And, back in the late 80s, 88, 89, you might remember that we were all up in arms because we were worried to a person in America that Japan was going to be number one in gross domestic product. Were they number three today, I believe? Well, they're not number one. And we knew that was going to happen. But when we looked at the evidence, thanks to HS Dent research, we see two things were missing for Japan that kept them from being number one. First of all, they did not have a baby boom generation. By the way, you know what caused the baby boomers, right? We call it pent-up demand. I hope you understand that. And then number two, they didn't allow for immigration. Well, we've done both here. That's what has really fundamentally caused the US of A, not because we're entitled or that we're special. That kind of income and those kinds of people help drive the economy to be as strong as any economy has ever been in the history of mankind. So here's what we find. When we look at all the expenses and all the bad news, and we want to bless the legals and maybe ban the illegals, when I talk to economists, and I have access to more than a few, what we find is that it's a net benefit. In other words, however they got here, the folks who come here want the same things that we wanted, those of us who've been here for more than a minute. They come here at the same age that you and I moved across the country for job opportunity. That's age 25 or 26. Seems not to be any different if we're coming from Vermont to California or vice versa, or from Italy to, New Jersey. It doesn't seem to matter. So we're all doing very predictable things in a very conscious way at the same time. So what we're going to say is that we find room for each other, that we find a way to get along, because at the end of the day, folks, we're not going to get out of this thing alive. So let's make it a little bit better for each other while we're here. With that, I'm John Grace, and I'm out.